Good afternoon. And since I think this session, mostly all the three presentations were on project side and security, whatever. The last presentation from my side is mostly orienting towards operational safety. And obviously the topic given to me was slightly tinge on health physics. I'm not a health physics professional, but in the beginning of my career with the induction of Gupta ji, V.K. Gupta, we had some experience on this. So, in this presentation, I will first try to give some background about how this health physics culture and all globally and safety culture. And Dr. Ramarao told me that to cover some operational aspects and how we actually take care. So in the last portion, couple of slides I made for that. So, yeah.
This side.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Okay, you can point.
Thank you. So when we called RP culture, I just Googled initially, and there are a lot of literature available in safety culture. Safety culture, organizational culture, these aspects, and societal culture. Now, I also talking about the country culture. So, if you see the historically, this human factor, this was highlighted only after TMI incident. So TMI incident, when investigation was going on, I think those who are aware of that was 1400. That is the first document on PSA kind of study where this human factor was incorporated in PSA study. And but safety culture per se, it came from after Chernobyl accident. Chernobyl accident led to the formation of INSAG in IAEA, and IAEA INSAG 1, 2, 3, which basically continuation of the investigation of this Chernobyl accident. And when it comes to the INSAG 4, where in 1991 that first term safety culture was introduced. And you see this Fukushima also, it's a may not be directly safety culture, but it's a culture which inculcated in their Japanese society, which have a repercussion in this accident, which the diet report of Japan also mentioned. So let's go ahead and let's start with some basic principles of health physics. I just wanted to briefly tell that health physics control is through three things: that justification, optimization, and dose limit. The first two, if you see, they are source related, and all the exposure situation they are applicable. The principle of justification is this, that any decision that alters radiation exposure situation should do more good than harm. And it means that by introducing a new radiation source, one should achieve sufficient individual or societal benefit to offset the harm it causes. So this is the principle of justification. And then comes optimization, where regulator comes in India, that the principle of optimization of the protection, the likelihood of the getting exposed and the number of people exposed and the magnitude of their individual dose should be kept as low as reasonably low. And this means that the level of protection should be based under the prevailing circumstances, maximizing the margin of benefit over the harm it causes. And obviously the next one is the dose limit, which is normally prescribed by the regulator. And this dose limit is the individualistic. That means other than medical exposure, a person should not exceed the appropriate dose limit. So this is the basic principle of radiation protection. Now, comes RP culture, that is radiation protection culture. So this term has not come anywhere other than I could find that IARP in their workshop. And in a workshop in December 2009, this is actually International Radiation Protection Agency, they coined this term and they defined also. And this definition tells that it is that RP is founded, regulated, managed, performed, preserved, and perceived in the workplace. It reflects the attitude, belief, perception, goals, and values that all parties involved share in relation to radiation protection. So a good radiation protection culture, what it provides? It provides the visibility to the fundamental radiation protection, which is science and values. And it gives a shared responsibility along the HP professional, operator, regulator, and the management of the plant. And the maintenance of RP heritage, which is very important, and it should also facilitate its transmission to the newer generation. And a better quality and effectiveness of RP through procedural things, and improvement in the communication within the plant as well as within the society. So key element of RP culture, if you look at, that it talks about the knowledge, that is science, and the values and ethics, and that principle what I was telling that comes from the justification, optimization, and limitation, the experience what we gained in practice, behavior, and the history of radiation protection, which is very important. We look at this, I'd like to draw your attention in this picture. Here you see, I just divided it in two, that is RP management and RP culture. So RP management starts in the design stage itself. So once you go that system design, the shielding design, these are the means for protecting people who will work with the system, maintain the system. So with that you can have some reduction. And then comes your supervision. Supervision means the control through health physicists, through our radiation work permits what we issue in the plants, and the health physics professionals. So you will achieve some level of achievement through this in the dose reduction point of view. But beyond this, if you have to go, you have to take this individual has to be aware of that. That means that it depends on the individual behavior, the plant professional's behavior, and then comes your team effort, which is the reflection of the culture of that organization. Subsequently, in later part, you see that INSAC 15 came in 2002, where that INSAC is that International Nuclear Safety Advisory Group. It describes this organizational culture. It's a mix of shared values. So far, other than IARP, this RP culture and all these aspects are not there in terms of IAEA. But in this document, I could find that it is a mix share of values, attitudes, and the patterns of the behavior of the organization and its particular character. That simply put the way we do things around here. And subsequently, this document tells that the culture of an organization in which radiation protection is practiced has a significant impact on the aspiration to maintain or improve radiation safety. So organizational culture is having a really impact on RP. How these things work? A system of radiation protection should ensure that the voices of those who advocate good radiation safety practice are properly heard by the organizational leaders and the seniors. And this can be particularly difficult in a target-driven culture where their focus is on other target. And the difficulty can be compounded in the aftermath of the corporate restructuring and loss of organizational memory. Now comes the ethics that ICRP in year 2018, that is post-Fukushima, it defines that RP has three pillars on which the system of radiation protection is built. The first pillar is the science, that is the science of radiation protection, along with the combining other different disciplines, and a set of ethical and societal values, and the experience accumulated on the day-to-day practice of the RP professionals. So under this, if you look at this ethical dilemma created, it can be seen through different lenses. Thing is that if you see that deontological ethics, it emphasizes that the duty to do right thing for an individual, that is protecting individual, is the main target. But whereas that utilitarian ethics, it focuses on greatest good for the greatest number of people. That means a action individual does can exceed, provided it do more good to the many number of people. So applying this ethical theory, it may lead to different kind of results. Now, why this communication of RP issue gets so complicated? It's basically, if you look at that in the radiation per se, that inability to detect ionizing radiation through the five senses, that becomes very suspecting for the people. And then the latency of radiation-induced biological effect. It takes long time to manifest. So it creates a fear kind of thing. Then unfamiliarity with the principle of radiation protection, very complicated radiation dosimetry, then controversy regarding the nuclear power, nuclear weapon, and nuclear waste, which creates a fear in the mind of public, and inherent uncertainty of acoustic effect, scientific argument about that no LNT method, which creates a very complicated hypothesis. And this concept may be very well understood by the HP professionals. But you should not forget that how alien they are to other people, those who are not professionals. Now, having told this background, let me talk how AERB works towards dose control or dose reduction in our power plants. So our mission is the use of ionizing radiation in nuclear energy in India does not cause any undue risk to health of the people and environment. And our role, we specify that specifying mandatory high-level requirement of radiation safety, oversight of the safety, and enforce the same. Recently, we published our integrated management system documents, where there are 10 policy statements mentioned. 2 policy statements are related to this subject, where we have written that practice inclusive, participative regulation with emphasis on positively influencing the licensee for compliance, influence licensees to develop and maintain strong safety culture in their organization. So we follow these 2 policies in radiation protection as well. So following this influencing policy, what we do? You see that low-level non-compliances. It comes from stray deviation of the licensee's procedure and practice and guidelines and norms. So these low-level things, we don't get involved directly. We allow licensee to take their own enforcement measures. And when it comes to the high level, then our regulatory enforcement comes in picture. But when no action is taken by the utility, the repeat non-compliances happens, and these repeat non-compliances, it becomes the part of behavior of the masses in the plant. And it forms part of the culture, which definitely will lead to some higher level non-compliances. So positive influence by the regulator can prevent manifestation of this low-level compliances culture in eliminating high-level non-compliances requiring regulatory enforcement. So how these positive influences happens in nuclear arena, that is from our regulator to utility, I could gather two books because we had some earlier interaction with NEA. NEA is having two booklets, one green booklet, one blue booklet on this aspect, where it is told that prime responsibility and accountability of safe operation of radiation protection rests with the licensee. These couple of points I jot down from these two books. And regulatory body's role is to oversight the licensee's activities. Regulatory body, by their nature, deeply influence licensee's safety culture and sense of accountability for safety. This influence is mutual from licensee to regulatory body. It is pervasive and may be unseen. That means utility can also have an impact of regulator's culture, which was found in Fukushima. And last one is the regulatory body cannot successfully impose and enforce and regulate culture rather than encourage and mentor its development in the utility. So as AERB, how we influence the safety culture in our different processes, in our approach for reviewing the issues, in the way we conduct our routine oversight, the type of relationship with the licensee we maintain, and sharing trust and values with the licensee. So how you just look at this, how low-level deviations, which are with respect to RP, it is improper use of personal protective equipment, and then low-level spillages, minor release of radioactivity due to unknown reason. So such kind of low-level deviation, if continually tolerated, as this limit are not exceeded, and hence regulatory intervention is not required, so it is being tolerated, then it's spread of the behavior of the masses. And then an event can happen. Now, with the influence of the licensees to take care if AERB does, and which AERB really do through our regulatory inspection, where is some kind of white deviation we introduced that which should be taken care by the utility themselves. So this influence, this checks and sample basis with the licensees mechanism is effective that we check, and which lead to the manifestation of behavior into an event which is precluded. So this influencing licensee can happen only if the culture, a good culture is existing in the utility. But then how to find that utility is really having a good culture so that this influencing arena works? So how to judge them? We do, you see, repeat non-compliances and interaction with workers and plant management and inspection meetings. And plant management is willing to lead actions towards safety by example. Then violations are not informed, noticed by the regulatory body during inspection or otherwise, and large backlog of safety-related work. So all this, if we can find, then you can point out that culture is deteriorating or it is not good. So if the licenses with this less matured safety culture, then that prescriptive regulatory approach has to be taken. And in such case, the imposition of the requirement and enforcement from the regulatory body, which is heavier, obviously. And the licenses with more matured safety culture, we have that accountability oriented, and which is enabling radiation approach we can adopt. Now, let me explain it through two incidences, how it propagates. Suppose a deficiency report of a leak from a process water pipeline and human-related cause, it is because of some human-related cause, and lack of qualification check after welding, a minimum consequence because it is a non-active system and it is repaired. Subsequently, similar deficiency report in another non-compliant system, non-active system, that was also addressed. This event of leak of active system, subsequently a active system may also leak with some minor spillages. So leak arrested, however, cause not addressed so far. So this will lead to someday a significant event of a major leak and human-related cause is because lack of qualification, check and welds. Similarly, one operational aspect, if we see that a routine fuel transfer activity by operator is happening in the control room, when a control engineer or extensive engineer is busy in writing their log, so there was a lack of supervision, which continued due to some problem, some program gets suspended, and manual command was given even without supervision of the senior officers. So this led to a significant event of a fuel bundle getting stuck and large efforts for the retrieval of that. So now in these two scenarios, if we see that initial things, that this portion can give you the early sign of decline. If we can act in this area, then we can avoid the significant events. Now, how this AERB captures this early sign of declining? Through our regulatory inspection, some checklists are filled by our inspectors, where job observation, adherence to procedures, supervision of activities, plant operation-based memory rather than written down instruction, this is observed. Then we conduct some surprise visit to our work location. Use of recommended PE is not there, improper use of dosimetry devices, etc. And maintenance activity, some repeat maintenance activity was found. So this is a process where we can identify something. Second comes here during our safety review, if the non-compliant conservative action was operator was noticed, we automatically make it more significant or we escalate it to the higher level of review. And this review at higher level which addresses the human and organization factor related issues as well. So other than this, annual SPI we conduct where we capture this. Then comes our periodic safety review where we check that how these events are causing their trends, their data of repeat maintenance breakdown, licensing interviews of operating personnel where AERB representative captures this cultural degradation, senior management certification interviews, then conduct of licensee representative during meeting of our safety committees. So these are the avenues where we capture this data which we analyze subsequently. Now comes the role of RSO in our nuclear power plant. RSO requirement comes from RP rules, that is 2004 RP rules, where AERB certified one person in the plant as a radiological safety officer. Now this officer is basically eye and ear of AERB in the nuclear power site, and a vigilant RSO is more likely to influence the worker in the following RP requirements in day-to-day activities. Now how this health physicist or RSO works, if you see the section level, they do the peer check, and then plant management level, they report to your organization NPC headquarters, where they have another level of review, and subsequently it comes to NPP SRCO, that is their internal safety review committee. So this total status as a performance status, this RSO reports monthly basis, quarterly basis, and annual basis to AERB. Now, what impact we received with doing all regulatory activities I just mentioned? You see, over a period of years, if I see, I just took a data of Tarapur 1-2, you see that initial collective dose was very high, in the order of some 80,000 or more than that person millisievert. And with the continuous action through this dose control, dose budgeting, dose review, and our regulatory inspection, and obviously utilities' own culture prevails here. So this current value is much lower, basically maybe 1/4 of that what we could see in the beginning of my career, actually in 1995 we have seen. Similarly, one example I can give, the EMCCR. EMCCR started in 1996 in Rajasthan 2, where it was first attempted. Tools, tackles was improper. Person used to work very close to the site. So slowly we kept improving the tools and improving the procedures, how to do it. Many automation has been done. Persons become aware. Practices, mock-ups, everything done before in the job at the site, which you see the reduction level, 20,000 to currently what done in the Rajasthan 3-4, it is almost 1/3 of that value. So another aspect is the trust building with the licensee. So how we built our regulatory body, built their trust with the NPCI. We involved our licensee representative in the development of regulatory requirement and requirement document itself. And this gives a better understanding to the utility in the intent of regulation, and which help in improved compliance. Also, we invite licensee representative in our safety review meetings, where technical things are discussed, and it gives a clear communication to the regulatory intentions on addressing the deficiency and what we expect. And then meetings with the management, management of the licensee, this also happens with some frequency, where we discuss the significance of addressing certain issues which need urgent attention. And finally, to be trusted, you must communicate successfully. And to communicate successfully, you must be trusted. So it takes years to build the trust with the licensee and regulators with respect to priority of safety. A robust safety culture in the licensee paves way for building trust with the regulator and thus enabling the regulation. With expansion of the nuclear power program, it's time to be more enabling regulation rather than a prescriptive and enforcing one, which is much heavier load to the regulator. So thank you. And